Hello, everyone. My name is Josh, and this is the second edition of the Skype for Business Spotlight. This week, well, I shouldn't say this week because I don't want to get into a rut of making anyone think it's going to be weekly. But for the second episode, I am being joined by Graham Walsh of Pexip. Graham, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, so I got to meet Graham recently at Ignite, and that was a good time. I was there for a few days, making my way around the floor, and then finally found the Pexip booth and got to stop in and get a demo and everything. And I just, when I met Graham, this is kind of how I met him. Just bear with me for a second, but this is very similar to my experience at Ignite. So he was rocking the Pexip pants, and then I had to smile when I saw that he brought them back for UC Day UK, and it definitely people recognize it, huh?
Yeah, they're good. You get talked about wherever you go.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah. No kidding. It makes people recognize it. I get that definitely. But give us a little history on the Pexip pants, because they are quite unique.
Yeah, so back in, I think, 2013 and 14, when the company was started and we launched, and we went to Infocom in the US. And obviously being a new kid on the block, shall we say, the guys in marketing thought, right, let's stand out from the crowd. You know, we're new to the market, let's do something different.
Right.
And so we did these Pexip pants one year. Another time we did bright orange suits, and then there was like another style of pants to have. So yeah, and then this year we thought, let's kick it off again. Let's go, try something different. Everyone wears jeans and a polo shirt, on the booth. So let's make a difference and make it memorable, as you say. Some people like to have a trademark. I love your hat and stuff. Coming from the Austin, Texas. Again, have a nice little trademark. I think it's good fun.
It is. I've gotten used to the term "the guy with the hat." So the guy with the pants is pretty easy to remember too. So there you go. Well done. At any rate, that was I had to smile when I watched the Skype show segment, and Mark had you stand up on the chair to show him off. I was like, that's a classic moment right there in video history. So
that's great fun.
So let's actually move on from that and get a little bit into a little bit about you, and then also Pexip as a company, who you guys are, and kind of what your general goals are, and then we're gonna kind of launch into talking about Pexip Infinity.
Okay, cool. So so I've been at Pexip now nearly coming up to a year, but I've been in the, let's call it, telecoms UC space for coming up to 20 years now. So starting with old analog phone systems, digital, IP, and then into the early days of UC, or very early things, getting your voicemail to your email. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then going from voice to text, so you can read it in the car and things like this. So that was all great stuff back in the early noughties.
Yeah.
And sort of my first foray into the sort of, let's call it, the Microsoft stack was going back to the early days of ILS, which was part of Exchange back then. And then that progressed into LCS, OCS, OCSR2, then Link 2010, 2013, and obviously now the latest Skype. So I've been with the product for, working with it a long time, and seen how it's grown up and matured, and how it's evolved just from this, really, do you need instant messaging, to it's the de facto standard of what you do now. It's like, is someone free? Yeah. You don't pick up your cell phone and go, oh, I'll call Josh. I'll go and see if he's available. So
right.
It's a great tool, and and I've seen, because I've worked with other resellers, I've worked with vendors, other people have tried it, and no one has got it quite as good as the Microsoft stack. I think it's just integrated so nicely to the Office suite and everything else. It just makes sense. I mean, yes, there are stuff that works with your audio call control if you're doing that, but then it's siloed. So yeah, I think Microsoft have really hit the nail on the head, and it was a genius thing renaming it Skype in this latest edition, I think.
Yeah, after the acquisition of Skype and starting to slowly work that in, it was a mouthful at first, but I think most of us have gotten over the shock and we're adjusting to the branding. Interestingly, you're hearing Skype without the for business more and more.
Yes.
Skype room systems. There's been a number of other things where you have to kind of scratch your head and wonder what's Microsoft doing on the marketing end there. But I won't push that envelope too much. Just some observations.
I'm sure they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, and we all must wonder and watch. So, awesome. So, Pexip as a company, about how many people are at the company, and where are you guys located at primarily?
Yeah, so we are about 70 people globally now, and we are headquartered. We've got like a dual headquarters, which is quite strange. So it's here in the UK, near Reading, and that's where R&D sit for the UK, and then over in Oslo is the other sort of main headquarters, and R&D sit there along with sales, marketing, finance, etc. And then for people like me, Reading's it's about an hour and a half away drive, but I work from home. Why waste time travelling when you've got the technology and tools to work from anywhere? So I work from home, and some other colleagues, and then we have an office in New York, China, Australia, and then we have people remote in the field again, from California, people down in Atlanta. So they all again work from home, and we use our technology every day to communicate with each other.
That's awesome. Eating the dog food, essentially, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I have to point out the first episode of the Spotlight was done with Google Hangouts for lack of a better option at the time, and this particular episode with the guest that I have, we are actually doing the show using the Pexip solution. So that's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat thing to be able to say we're not only going to demo, we're doing a demo within the demo. So very, very cool and intriguing approach. With that, let's dive into Infinity a little bit. Can you tell us the main point or the main goal, the main thrust of Infinity, and then maybe we can start to kind of dive into some of the branches of it or different pieces and components.
Sure, yeah. So the main goal of the platform is to be scalable and distributed. So traditionally you'd have, devices in each data center, and you'd have to buy that hardware device to do video, let's call it transcoding. And what Pexip thought was, let's make it simple and scalable. So where the IT technology was moving to in 2011, 12, virtualization. Everyone was going to stop buying one use servers or, use servers to host Exchange and Skype for Business and dedicate, put all the roles from dedicated into a big server farm. So this is what our team saw was IT is shifting to virtualization. They don't want to take a black box and put it in the data center and think, oh, that's it, we'll leave that one, we won't touch it. Let's make video as part of the IT team. So that's where the idea is, okay, virtualization. You've got a great layer from, Hyper-V, VMware, Citrix Zen, etc. that, can do clever things like move your data center from one place to another, use your servers, and use their tools that they have established, so not having to build that into your product already. So having a good foundation there sort of made sense. And from then, it was, okay, now you've got this great architecture. Let's not put it in Austin and London. Let's put it in Austin, London, New York, Australia, and make it, a one whole virtual network, basically, of video transcoding blades, but all based on virtualization. And it didn't matter which virtualization it was, or it could be a mix of. So again, trying to be open and standards-based to everything. So that's the sort of main sort of feature of the product, is simple, scalable, and distributed. And the sort of main, I'm trying to think of the word, our main goal is, just to have the best interoperability platform So, when people don't have to make a choice, do we go one vendor here, or no, we have to keep the same globally? Well, have that interoperability layer, which, London can choose what technology they want, New York can choose what they want, another country can choose what they want. Because of regional differences and laws, and, you might have to get homologation, and you may not be able to have one globally, or someone quite likes the Surface Hub. Let's have that. It's new, it's fancy, or Project Rigel, they want the latest and greatest. So the idea is that, your strategy for video interop is interoperability. So you provide that interoperability layer and not have to go down, one particular size, because, not one size fits all, because, users are different in each location, etc. Generations are different, Gen Y, Gen X, millennials. Everyone has a different way of doing things. So our idea is that our platform is seamless, it's transparent, and, people use the technology they want to use, but to call each other without knowing, when you pick up your cell phone, you think, are you on AT&T, or are you on Rogers, are you on a Samsung or on an iPhone? You just pick it up and call them.
Yeah.
Well, if you call them, rather than I am.
Right.
But, and it should just work, and that's the key.
So I mean, you're aiming for interoperability, but from that ultimate goal of the customer doesn't want to figure out all the different how-tos and caveats and how to work around them. They just want it to work, and so that sounds like it's kind of been baked into your strategy and how you've developed the product. And I have to say, just from the brief demo that I got from you at Ignite, that's definitely the look and feel I got being in the booth and watching it all in front of you. Is there didn't seem to be, a whole lot of having to make sure you did X, Y, Z on this side, and then it just was all working together. The various endpoints that we were looking at. So very, very, very cool. So you started to dive into virtualization and building on a virtual platform. So let's use that as kind of a segue into the available architectures for how a customer would deploy this in their environment. What options are there to them?
Yeah, so the main options are, what people have been doing, let's call it, in the past couple of years, is using their virtualization farms that they have already. So whether it's VMware or Hyper-V, in some regions we do see open source, so Zen and KVM. So again, we support that. We put it through our QA testing. But recently we've seen a big shift or big interest in cloud. And when I say cloud, I'm talking public cloud. The likes of Microsoft Azure and AWS, and any other host that decides to spin up a cloud and call it their own. Ultimately, it's built on a foundation of a virtualization platform. So I know some other vendors, they down the bottom on the bare metal is VMware, and then they put their tools and orchestration layers on top. But fundamentally, it is VMware, so we'll work on that vendor's cloud. So. And that's the base there. So we've seen a lot of people go into cloud, and so we deploy in Microsoft Azure and AWS today, and we've got some nice features in there. So obviously using cloud is utility computing. So you can have capacity on demand. You don't have to ring up your IT supplier and say, hey, can you send me a new server for Monday? We've got a big call, we need to get everyone on. It's not going to happen. FedEx will probably lose it or someone, and it won't arrive in time. You've got to rack and stack it, and get maybe security credentials into your data center to put it in. So with cloud compute, you can just say, right, turn it on. I want some capacity in Azure and London South, or I want it in East US. Turn it on, get Pexip up and running, and then you have instant capacity on demand.
So obviously, software-based solution. How many VMs would be required in this deployment? Is it a tool that requires 3 to 4 VMs to be a full working solution, or can you dive into that a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So minimum is 2. So you have the concept of a management node, and we'll run through this in a second when we go to the demo. So the management node is like your pane of glass to see everything what's going on the platform. And then you build out conference nodes. And for example, with VMware, we can streamline it and use their APIs. So you can automate deployments of conference nodes through VMware. In Hyper-V, it's a manual process, and in the cloud, it's again a manual process that you just say, right, I want to build a node, put it here. So, we like to deploy many nodes. We don't just like one. We like 2, 3, 4. Some of our larger customers are running up to nearly 100. So they've got a big distributed network because you can. It's not a cost to say let's set up a VM. It's your own cost, either in your own bare metal, VMware environment, or it's turning the cost on in Azure or AWS. So, and the beauty of it is now is that we can do a nice clever thing of bursting. So you may reserve, I don't know, let's call it 20 calls, and you need to get 25 people on a call. So what we can do with our APIs is say, hang on, I'm hitting 18 calls, I'm nearly full. Let's send an API command to our cloud and initiate those servers. So within about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how quick they are, you'll then have that extra capacity of 25, 30, 40 calls. And once the call is, everyone's dropped off and hung up, then it'll switch off those conference nodes in the cloud. So making it much better for your pocket and the environment, I'm sure.
The beauty of scalability, like you said, having the capacity on demand, but saving space in the budget in the meantime.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Okay, let's shift back a little bit and back to the interoperability angle and talk about some of those endpoints, some of the third-party products that we would expect to see functioning well and being a part of this interoperable environment within a company. Meeting rooms all over the country or all over the world, and different vendors, etc. What kind of names and devices would we expect to see happy in this environment?
So there were two, let's call them, there were two main players in the market for the last nearly 20 probably years, and that's Polycom and Tandberg, which is now Cisco. They sort of dominate the market in terms of meeting room systems. So wherever you walk into a conference room, I'm sure in your day job you will see one of those two flavors. There are some others out there, like Lifesize, and there's some new guys coming up in the market. Yealink, Huawei, they're bringing out some great devices at a great price point too. So it gives people more options now. That you just don't have to stick with two vendors. There is a handful of vendors out there now, and some of the new things that come along. The Link Room system and the Skype Room system, and now the new version Rigel, and the Surface Hub. So these are all different technologies that people want to use. I was speaking to a customer today, and they heard the new Google board. I can't remember what it's called. That was released this week.
I saw that. Yeah.
He's already had an employee come up and ask him, "Can we get one?" He's like, "No, it hasn't been launched yet. We haven't done any testing with it yet. And what use is it?" I don't know. It's brand new. We need to try it. So these are the sort of challenges we get thrown at us. Oh, does it work at X? Does it work at Y? So, the Pexip Infinity platform works with the standard room system. So it will be SIP. It could be H323. And then moving to the Skype for Business world, talking to their Link 2013, etc. And even going back to the real-time video codec on Link 2010. So we also support that if someone needs to get a call into that. But I've not seen too many Link 2010 deployments out there still. Most people have gone up to at least 2013. Yeah. And again, audio, bringing audio into a call. People still, let's call it, they're video shy.
Yeah.
The number of organisations I go around to, and you see a little post-it note over the webcam because they're afraid of being seen on camera. So it's still a generation shift to start using video. And everyone who's got a cell phone is a video producer. They don't put a sticker over their Samsung or their Apple device, do they? They're probably FaceTiming or Snapchatting, whatever they're doing with their friends. So why do it on your laptop? But that culture is changing, and and the good thing about that is it's driving more demand and more need for interoperability. That yes, you've got all the room systems, but there's a lot more desktops and mobiles than there is rooms. So that comes back to, again, scale and distribution, that you want to get everyone on the call.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of that culture shift is kind of, it's more of a philosophical part of the discussion than diving into Infinity specifically. But as more and more companies start to force themselves or are being forced to get comfortable with a remote workforce, or at least portions of their workforce being remote, a lot of that has to do with a generational uncomfortableness with letting go of that immediate control, in the area, and having somebody working in some other part of the country that you're responsible for managing, and you just hear their voice once in a while. It still is a little unnerving for some people, and I think video is going to continue to play a more prominent role as they realize, okay, we can still have some face to face, we can still see what's going on with each other. It's
Yeah.
not just some voice somewhere out there, we're still talking, we're still connected, we still see
Yeah.
each other despite the fact that we're not all in the same location. And I think
Yeah.
it is part of a culture and generational shift in the workforce. So but
I
yeah,
mean,
good point.
one of the things that, when we get an invite to a meeting, it's like, oh, it's a conference call. And I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube sketch of a comedian doing a typical conference call, and or you might have seen the one on YouTube as well, as people don't know you're there, you don't know who's there, the dog is barking, or whatever else it might be. And it's like, oh, who's just joined? And with video, you get that immediate connection with people.
Yes.
And you can start, oh, Josh, I love your hat. You can, oh, look at the deers or whatever it might be around your outside, in the garden. And you don't get that on audio. And it's so less productive, I think.
Yeah, I definitely, there is a whole different element that video brings. And I'm obviously a big advocate of being able to work remotely. I have for a number of years now. I actually personally believe that I am more productive being remote than I am in an office where I have a ton of distractions around me. And that's just my personal take on it. But there are still times where being remote, you miss being able to turn around and chat with the person next to you and have a face-to-face conversation, just shooting the breeze. And so being able to dial someone up and have a 5-minute face-to-face, helps fill that gap a bit, and it brings a level of, personal touch that you feel like you miss when you're abroad. And so it's definitely an important element that I think you're right. We're going to see more and more. And there are several companies out there. Obviously, you guys are a very big proponent, but that are going to be pushing it to be the norm. And I think there's an acknowledgement and a knowledge at a lot of companies that it needs to be the norm. But when it comes to the individuals, not the management thought, but the individuals, there's still, even those individuals, or those people that are in management that know video needs to take more of a precedence. On an individual level, many of those people even are still uncomfortable. Like you said, sticky notes, and they don't want to flip that video on. I didn't put my makeup on today, or I didn't, things like that. And it's just, I think it's coming. It's coming. It's getting there.
Yeah.
So,
I think my view is keep it real. You are what you are. You're in your home environment or in your home office, wherever it might be. And, that's life, and it opens dialogue and everything else. I think it's great that, you see people, how they work and where they are and things. And it breaks down barriers.
Yes, definitely does. All right, before we go yakking on like two schoolgirls any longer here, let's dive into a demo. Have you kind of show us, aside from the demo that we are currently demonstrating with this video, let's have you share your screen, and I'm gonna kind of have you really take the reins on this and guide where it should go. I'll jump in, with questions here and there. But, especially given the nature of this show being one in which the goal is to shine a light on a product or an area that enhances Skype for Business or Microsoft UC. Clearly, you guys reach beyond those borders, but it's also a big part of what you do. So, if you can show us some stuff that is particularly pertinent to Skype for Business, and then other points that you feel are important to cover.
So I think let's start with how we're doing this all, because people might be interested on how we got to this the stage. So we so within the Pexip Infinity platform, we support RTMP streaming, which YouTube supports, Facebook Live supports, and then you have the commercial ones like QMove, VBrick, Wowzer, Collective, Azure Media Services, etc., etc. So we can talk to any of them as part of our meeting, and you've set it up. You go to a little simple page we've created, for example, for YouTube. It's very simple to do at Facebook as well, and you generate yourself a unique link that you can view, and then you put it into the Pexip meeting, and it knows it's going to then go and stream, and then obviously you then jump over to your YouTube manager and say, yep, let's check it, hit record. So it's that simple for users to become their own publishers as well, for example. So yeah,
I gotta, I have to chime in at that point and just say that if you're not a video guru, and that I am not a video guru, when it comes to doing my own recordings, the Skype for Business recap and things like that, I use a software called XSplit, and it's you can figure your way through it. It's not the most dumbed down easy thing to figure your way through. But if you go and you want to set up live streaming or something through that tool to YouTube or something, and you start reading through the instructions on YouTube, I don't mean to make myself sound like an idiot here, but it can be a little bit cumbersome. It can be a little confusing and just make you feel like, what the heck are they talking about?
And double Dutch.
Right. Short of taking a class on it, it just feels like, well, in essence, I gave up on trying to do the streaming, and I just pre-record it on the desktop, cut it all up, clean it up, and then upload it to YouTube. What we're doing here today, though, was so easy to set up. Like you said, it was a very simple page to choose your login, give a name to the video. It generates a link for you, takes you to the control room within YouTube, and just sets it all up for you. It was so simple to hook this right into YouTube for live streaming. Now, of course, I made the video private because I'm going to clean this all up afterwards. But still, the experience was very, very user friendly. So sorry to detour there, but I had to chime in on that piece in particular. So,
but it's good to people. It's good, I think, to people know what tools you're using in case they want to do similar things. Like, as you say, how you do your recap shows and stuff. So it's let's start off my screen then, and this is one you may like. Infinity, you like to show your Infinity screen, so we get it here on Pexip too. So what we'll do is first start off with the platform and on how it's hosted today. And we're going to show you a demo on how it's hosted in Microsoft Azure, for example. So, and what the beauty of the platform is actually is quite key. It doesn't matter where it's hosted. You don't lose features because it's on VMware or on Hyper-V or it's on Azure or AWS. It's the same platform on everything. So it's the same, let's call it appliance or whatever you want to, define the product. It's the same wherever you deploy it. And if you do a mixed deployment, it doesn't matter. Some can be in Azure, some can be on-prem on Hyper-V. It's just all the same platform. So going back to what you mentioned sort of earlier, what does it take to set up the platform? And simply we have the top one here, which is a simple manager. And you can see I've got different locations set up here. And I'll give you an overview of my Azure platform. I'm no Azure expert, but I've picked it up as I've gone along, and it's quite fun to learn with. But you've got a region. You have a data center, UK South, for example, as you can see in the top one, and that's where I've deployed my management node. And again, on our website on docs.pexip.com, everything is listed. Whatever you want to configure or find, VM size and that sort of thing, it's all published there. So, for example, the management node just needs a little A2 machine, so a very small compute, just to tick over, collect log files, and see a dashboard, see some, and obviously do your configuration. And And then it comes down to the conference nodes, and this is what does the video transcoding. And within the each data center, you get your networking and subnets. So that's great. So you can deploy a manager and deploy conference nodes. Now they always need to speak to each other to get their config, to get their updates and know what's happening. So when you start going multi-site, so outside of one data center, you need to create a VPN. So within Azure, you can create a site-to-site VPN. And how I've defined it is site A is UK South, and site B is East US. So I've simply got a VPN tunnel between the two sites, and then I've created more sites in Asia and Australia, just because I can, and built up this whole mesh of a VPN, so everyone talks to each other. And then that enables us to deploy Pexip in each one of these regions. The same as if you would if you had your own MPLS network, internally, or however you do your network and infrastructure.
Right.
So that's the quick overview of the platform, really. And if you looked at my Azure platform, you can see I've got my network gateways, and you will see my connections. And very simply, there's a connection from each location to location. So you've got a nice mesh where everyone's talking to each other. And the nice thing about Azure is obviously you can monitor your spend and throughput and data, so you can see how much data in and out from each different ones, etc.
Yeah.
So it's quite cool to do this and manage and see what's happening in real time.
And Azure is great, and it looks. I mean, it's just clean. It looks very nice and tidy, and everything. But this is obviously, like you said, this same concept could be deployed in any other type of AWS or your own private cloud or etc. So
absolutely. So as long as you've got one management node and several conference nodes, and they all can talk to each other, then it's good to go. So you could do some clever things. If Australia, again, follow the sun, you could use the APIs, PowerShell, etc. To start and stop machines. If you wanted to write your own scripts. We can actually build it in for Azure. We do it in, as I mentioned earlier, for AWS, the cloud bursting, where you do capacity. But again, you can run scripts with PowerShell to do loads of things in Azure. So, and we're going to build in the bursting bit to Azure into the product. So that'll be a neat addition there. But you could do it today with your PowerShell scripts and say, right, it's now 6 p.m. in Australia. Everyone's gone home. Let's turn those machines off and bring them back up at 8 a.m. sort of thing. So I'm sure there's clever ways. I'm no PowerShell guru, so I'm sure there's some clever people out there that could do their sort of scripts and again make it much more cost effective within your control of costs of running a cloud service. And that's it. You don't do anything else within the platform. You can look at the CPU utilization and things like that. But for us, for configuration wise, once you've deployed it, set up your platform. That's it. The machine just sits there idling, and writing log files to the disk, etc. So you can come in and check the performance of it and see what is happening. Awesome. And basically, that's it. That's what you do in Azure. And obviously, you may have other services and servers, etc. in Azure. So you probably have your own way of managing your dashboards in there.
Right.
So now I've logged into the management node. So this is the management node sitting in Azure, and obviously I've created my DNS entry to it. And I can now come in here, and for example, I can see the status and the conference nodes, and this is now showing me everything that's running. And what we have is when it's green, it means it's last contacted. So we update every minute. So we say, right, are you online? Are you online? Here's the new config. Here's this. Here's that. So we make sure the whole database is distributed and everyone's aware of what's happening. And for example, if a data center went down and went offline, these things happen internally or in the cloud. They may lose a connection for whatever reason. The conference nodes can carry on. They can carry on for 2 weeks without being talking to the manager. So they are nice and resilient. So hopefully within 2 weeks you can get everything back up and running. Shouldn't take that long.
Luckily, that's a good good amount of cushion built in there, 2 weeks. So yeah,
exactly. And obviously you couldn't do any config changes or make anything like that, but you have got a working platform. No one's going to ring you up and say, hey Josh, I can't do video. It's just going to work. And if the data center they were connected to drops out, they hit redial on their video system or on a Skype client, they dial back in, and it will connect to the next nearest location. So, and that's the other thing. You use things like load balancers and GeoDNS, and you do clever tools that are out there available today to make it as robust as possible to get you in that call. Yeah. So within this platform, within this test platform, I've actually made it very small on purpose, so you can show nice bursting on that. When you start getting scale and loads of people in a call, you start opening up different utilizations of conference nodes, and I'll show you that. So normally you would see something like 15 HD connections in that second last column. So you work out your capacity, how much video interrupt you need, and you deploy 1, 2, 4, 80, however many servers you need. And to give you an example of scale, so let's take your own on-premise hardware where you go and buy your, your Dell, HP, etc. server, and you get your Intel chip. And within there, usually we work really well with the E5 series, and we basically hammer that processor and see, right, how much video throughput can we get on you guys? And one of the latest ones, Intel updated them in end of March. They did that version 4 release, and we saw between a 30 and 40% gain on video throughput on the same chip. That was the same, let's call it, $1,500 last year. It's now $1,500 this year, but we're getting 30% more calls on it because Intel have done, some magic on the inside and just made it much, much better. So, an example of like a 1U server with two CPUs in it for about, let's call it $7,000-8,000, depending on how good your deals are with your vendors. And you would get nearly over 100 HD calls on that 1U pizza box, which is just staggering. You wouldn't have seen that 3-4 years ago. You'd be struggling with maybe 50, 60 calls on a 3U box or an 18U box, and using and that's the other thing. Going back to why Pexip and what it was founded on, it was looking at the laws of physics. What are Intel Compute doing? Going back to the old days of video processing, you'd have to buy a dedicated chip to do your video processing. That's all it did. And obviously using industry standard Intel chips has been, absolute roaring success. As the Intel chips have evolved, then our product evolves alongside it with it nicely, because it's using that instruction set to do real-time video processing, which you couldn't work out this 5-10 years ago. It just wasn't possible. It was like, video processing chip, let's use that. Right. But now everything's standards based. You want to try and get the best you can and not make it proprietary. So hence using Intel chips. It's been great.
Awesome. Cool.
So this is the sort of platform here where you can sort of come in and see your status of what's happening. It's your one pane of glass to see everything. And one of the nice things within the platform is that you can actually register devices to it. So again, previously in sort of different platforms, you'd have to have a platform just for registrations, a platform for X, a platform for Y. Whereas we haven't got everything. We're not going to build everything. We're going to build the things we can put in the product, and again, keeping it to our original ethos of scalable and distributed. So there's certain things you can't do on scale, there's certain things you can't do that's distributed, so we won't do them. Let's use the other third-party vendors because they're good at it. We're going to do the things we can do, and we can deliver in the fashion and tradition of how we founded the platform. So one of the things is here is registrations, and again going back to what you mentioned earlier about which vendors, it doesn't matter. As long as it follows the standards of the RFC standards for protocol and signaling and all the other standards that the bodies have created, then that we adhere to them within our products. So as you can see on my screen there, we've got a Polycom system connected, a Cisco system connected, a Polycom phone, and a Yealink phone. So all these are hanging off the platform. They're actually sitting here in my office, and they are registering to Azure Cloud. So again, you have zero footprint within your office or data center. Everything's now hosted in the cloud. And what this enables you to do is then simply make a call from, say, your Skype client to that room system or that video phone. So this is a nice thing about the product, is it's just so user friendly. Especially coming from the Skype world, where people are used to looking up people in the directory or putting someone in their buddy list, and then you just quickly right click start video call. So it makes it super simple to do that. And, let's do that now. Let's call my Yealink. It's here next to me, and I'll have to mute it very quickly. So
I think seeing some of this from the end user side would be a really good way to kind of wrap up the infrastructure side here.
Yeah. So what we have is, I've got my this is my Office 365 account within Pexip, and I've added these to my buddy list. And you can see the green presence. We're showing the availability that Pexip is alive. The gateway service is there. So if I'd shut down Azure, then obviously you'd see these would be offline. So we just show that, I can talk to that endpoint through Pexip. It's not telling me if the endpoint is busy or not. That's a whole new world, trying to do presence on thousands of devices. So again, we're going to stay clear of that because it's complex. Well, I think it is anyway, trying to manage thousands of presence registrations. So it's so we see it. Can we call it? So as a user, you just go in and type it in as what you want to type in, who you want to call, and obviously it brings up your list. So I've got these in my buddy list. So obviously I am a room system. That's not going to work. They don't understand I am. And obviously you could do a Skype call and just do audio. Which people are afraid of video will like, but hey, we're going to do a video call, and I just simply right click video call, and now what's happening is it's calling through Pexip. So going from my Skype for Business client here, let's just mute that. So now you'll see me in double vision, and what you will see, obviously you got a logo there from UC Day, so that was from Monday, where I was presenting, again, the similar story about how to do video in Interop in Azure. So again, you can customize the platform with your own logos, your own branding, and anyone who's sharp and started watching the video early on would see in the top left we've got the Skype for Business Spotlight hashtag up there. So you're able to put in a what we call now a watermark, and this is a new feature we just released in the latest version. So again, it's a nice personal branding, and you may have seen it in Skype actually when you do when you go full screen in your Skype for Business client, you see the Skype in the top right. So that's it. That's a point-to-point call, which is very simple for users to go and do. And the nice thing now is I can go and look at my conference and say, hey, I've now called someone registered to Pexip. There's two people in the call, so there's my Skype client and my Yealink video phone. And you can see we are using the platform as a gateway. So we're translating from one technology of the Skype for Business, H.264 SVC, over to SIP, which is a standard SIP phone from Yealink. And we look at the details here. So again, as a UC admin trying to manage the platform, you can see here what's happening. You can see who's dialed who. Are they guest? Are they host? Are they presenting? Are they muted, etc. And you can see what location they're in. And if I hit graph now, you'll see we've got a nice pretty graph. And we're actually connected through two different data centers in Asia and Australia. So this is live in Azure across two different data centers, and the green line between the two, that's unique to Pexip. That's what we call our backplane that does the magic. And obviously underlying this we have the Azure VPN. So obviously our infrastructure set up, but this is Pexip creating a backplane between two locations. If we had these were in the same location, we're both in Australia, then it would stay in Australia. But for the demo I've registered things differently, So you get the nice effect to show, what is possible with scale.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And then you can do things like hover over it, and you can see, okay, we've hit the load on a media node. And this is again where intelligence can come in. Hey, look, I can't host any more calls in Southeast Asia. I need more capacity. So if I was in my Skype client, and let's add someone else. Let's add my SX10, my Cisco. And what this is going to do now is escalate this call to a meeting on the Skype server, and we'll just move that graph over there and watch it happen. Let's zoom out a little bit. So yeah, this is now going to the Skype online server, now creating a meet now. So again, normal workflow that users would do. You start chatting one to one. You think, oh, let's escalate this. Let's drag someone in and get them on the call. So that's now it can't dial out. Let's try that one again. Let's try my HDX. See who's awake. So basically, let's get this on mute ready.
And I think the important thing to highlight as we're watching this. I mean, this is awesome to watch it happen and what our capabilities are in the portal there. But the important piece that we're looking at right here is that the end user experience is no different for an end user. They don't have to learn or do anything different than they normally do. Yet they have all this interoperability between all these various endpoints. And you now have more insight as the IT admin into what's going on with these calls and an interoperability level. You've got these visuals, which are nice. You've got the detail in there. Can you also run reports on this information after the fact?
Yeah, so going back to that, reports. Let's zoom out a little bit. So you can look at system status and usage stats. So as an admin, there's a couple of nice things you can do. So here we've got some nice coloured graphs, and you can see your different locations. And if you hover over one, so let's go over to here, Azure South, we've seen 75 minutes of calls on 23rd, which might have been Monday at UC Day. So that was live in calls in the UK South. Then you hover over. The next one, Southeast Australia, 28 minutes, and then you go down to the next one, 28 minutes as well, and you can easily see what data centers are doing what volume of traffic, and again helps pick up patterns. Who are the heavy video users? So maybe where do you need to deploy more servers to cope with the video demand?
Right.
And then coming down here,
I apologize. I didn't mean to derail you from the graph we were looking at. But yeah, with that data, reporting was the natural question that came to mind. So,
so this is very basic. This reporting, and again, you can see the number of ports and utilization. But you can view the source data. So you can take this raw data, and we've also got a PowerShell script where you can come in and look at the conference history. So obviously this is a nice GUI where you can come in, see a call, drill down into it, and sort of replay the whole log file of the call, what happened, duration, what device we're on, what version they were on. So you can, as an administrator, or let's call it a support personnel trying to troubleshoot what happened to a call, you can replay all the information here. But it's also got all the stats, like the graphs and stuff, in the core data. So with PowerShell, we can export the data and then do some nice things and take it into simple terms, Microsoft Excel, and do a nice little table and pull out some graphs. Or now recently we've been doing it into Power BI. So taking that same data, you've got a nice big CSV, dropping it into Power BI, and then using Power BI to, especially when you're on the Surface Hub, you can then manipulate the data and pinch and zoom and see, okay, how many calls were a gateway, how many were in, Azure London, etc., and what type of calls, who are the biggest users, etc. So you can pick up, there is so much data in there, it's great, and you extract it all and you use what you want. And we've got other customers using it into other platforms such as Splunk, pick up the data from that platform. And again, you just automate the scripts to pull the data off, end of the week or once a month, however you want to do your reporting. And again, the platform's got a full management API. So if you're script happy, you can get stuck in and extract whatever data you want from the platform, and put it on whatever dashboards, or again, if you've got like a monitoring center or NOC for your video network and other IT systems, you can plumb it all into that as well.
Yeah, awesome. There's clearly a lot of control given and a lot of tools given to the IT admin on the back end for keeping it on the environment and managing it appropriately. Jumping back over a little bit to the end user experience.
Yeah.
You mentioned this account is an Office 365 account. It's in your tenant there. Are there any differences or things that customers would need to watch out for in the hybrid happy world that we live in? Hybrid is one of those buzzwords these days, and it seems like everybody and their brother has some sort of hybrid happening. Is that a concern for people, or is that not an obstacle in the Pexip world?
There's only one sort of difference between on-prem and online. So as you saw there, I was able to drag in a Polycom endpoint, a Yealink endpoint, and we're on a call. Standard workflow. When we're on premise, we get, let's call it a bonus feature. Because we're a trusted application to the Skype for Business server, we can very simply then use the conference ID. So when you generate a meeting, and let me just bring up my Outlook to give you a flavour of what that looks like, just to remind people. Let's connect in with Outlook. And this will help you understand, again, going back to the user workflow. And so here's my Outlook coming through on the screen, and into my calendar. So, as a user, again, going back to user workflow, you're going to go and create a meeting. You hit new Skype meeting. Very, very simple. And let me just zoom in so everyone can see that better. Again, talking about user workflow to make things simple, I'm also using Modality Custom Invite here. So, we've worked with them on making the join experience as simple as possible for users to do video. People, going back to what we were saying earlier, there's video rooms out there everywhere, and people are afraid of video sometimes. So, you have, and they don't want to use it. And one of the things is, you walk into a room. I don't have a remote here, but imagine that's my remote control, and you've got to type some numbers in. People don't want to look stupid, or they don't want the call to fail, so they want, good, clear instructions. And that's one thing we can do with Modality Custom Invite is put those in. So you've got your standard meeting to join, where you click and it'll launch your Skype client. And we can also then join with the browser. Like you've joined the call today, you've just used your Edge browser. We support ORTC, and we also support WebRTC in Chrome and Firefox. And that's how I'm sharing is I'm using Chrome and the desktop extension, and I'm able to share my desktop or my application. So it's very, very simple. Again, user workflow, just like Skype, the same tools that you use. And it gives people choice. They can choose what they want to connect with. But yeah, going back to the meeting, is that obviously you generate a conference ID within Skype for Business. So again, it can be from 5 to 8 digits, 9 digits, whatever's been configured by the Skype admin. And so when you're on premise, you could actually walk into any VTC room and just type those numbers. So making it very simple that you've got one number, one identity to get into your conference. So, okay. And when you do that, obviously you'll then appear as that system in the call. So again, it depends, who wants to initiate the call, who wants to control it. And obviously, as you mentioned, we're keeping the exact workflow, and I have the endpoints here so I can mute people, remove them from the meeting, so I can right click on the HDX and, get out. We're finished with you. We're done. So, you've got full control over these room endpoints, VTC systems that, just a standard workflow. You're not doing anything different to those users. And as that user, they can either, let's say the room's been overbooked and, you're running across time, you need to go to another room. you'll just go to another room. If you're on premise, and you just type in the Skype ID again, the meeting ID, and you're back in the call.
Yeah.
So again, that's the only difference with 365 and on-prem. And one of the nice things we can do is each Skype meeting's got a unique ID. If you look at the URL meet.link.com, for example, and if we hover over here, you'll see it. / your name / a alphanumerical ID. We can take that numerical ID and bring a system into a call. So again, using Pexip Infinity as the gateway, we can take you into that call using a web browser. And what a web browser would look like, going back to what does end user experience look like. And if I go to my platform in Azure, and if I type it right, I'd help. And this will now connect into one of what we call our conference nodes that's sitting in Azure. And you may recognise a logo or two here that come up. It's completely customizable on what you can do. So this is, again, part of the platform. You can brand whatever you see, basically.
Lovely. I like that. That's a good looking background there.
It's good, isn't it? Nice. And for example, in here, you can, if you clicked on the hyperlink in your platform, then that will populate all those details for you. So all you have to do is put your name in, and then from WebRTC or ORTC, you would join the Skype meeting. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat.
It is. And I mean, this is exactly how we started up this current episode, actually. So it was a very easy thing to go into your settings and configure your mic and your audio, your bandwidth, etc. Very easy to set that all up and then connect in and
And what you want to do is hide that from the user. So they're there as an option, and again, as part of customization, you can strip everything out. So users don't get confused by any extra tools or settings. You predefine them in a hyperlink, so they just click a link and they're in the meeting.
Excellent. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to walk us through all the various components of this. And I like that we finished up on the end user experience. You kind of gave us a very logical walkthrough from, what an IT admin's journey is going to look like getting this deployed in their environment, and what their options are there, what the capabilities are at that point, and then what it's going to look like to the end user. And one of the most important pieces to that I can see is that it's seamless to those who want to stick to their usual workflows, but that there are also other very simplified tools made available to users who may want a little not the most normal or straightforward approach. Maybe they want the WebRTC approach. And so this is a lot of good options. So thank you very, very much for coming on and taking the time to share this with us today.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
This is awesome stuff. All right. Yes. Let's see. Now, the one thing that I don't think I can do is stop sharing your screen from here. So are we able to jump back down? There we go.
Stop sharing now.
Awesome. So you mentioned we'll just kind of end on a note that lets people be able to appropriately follow up with you guys if they have further questions or want to see a little bit more of this. You mentioned also docs. Was it docs.pexip.com earlier?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Docs.pexip.com.
Okay.
Is the site. And I can recap that if you want.
Sure. Well, and I just kind of wanted to point people in the direction of a place where they could go and do a little bit of their own follow-up. Some people want to engage and have a conversation. Others just want to go and figure it out on their own and read about it and learn about it. So, and you guys do have stuff out on like YouTube as well, correct? For demonstration videos.
My YouTube channel is full of demonstrations and videos too.
Yes. Awesome. Great. And so. What would the standard recommendation if customers wanted to engage you guys in a more personal way? Would it be to go and contact you guys via the website, or
that's usually the best way. So we actually, if you want to bring it up, if you go to our website, we've got this new what do we call
I'll let you go ahead and do that. I think I'm in the wrong browser, but
okay. If I docs.pexip, let's go to pexip.com. So yeah, you can engage with us live, real time, or yeah, drop us an email, that sort of stuff. Let's share my screen again.
All right, so here we are, pexip.com.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is our main page, as you say. If you want to get in contact with Pexip, a couple of ways. One is come to our website, pexip.com, and down the bottom right you'll see a little icon. And from here you can interact with one of our members of the team and ask any stupid questions you need to. Not too stupid, hopefully. And get some information about the product or get some direction where you want to navigate to. So say you're looking for some technical information, or how do you do LDAP integration with the platform, whatever it might be. Our online chat facility here can sort of direct you in that location. And as you sort of mentioned earlier, we've got our doc site, so docs.pexip.com. Lists everything you need to do. So, for example, how you integrate with Skype, how you integrate with your call manager, how you integrate with your policies and APIs and whatever else you need to do. And over here in diagnostics, what firewall ports you need to do. So if you're looking at setting the product up, what firewall ports you need to run, etc. So everything's listed on the site here. But yeah, if you want to get in contact, or you want to, let's call it test drive the product, you can come in and go and try Pexip, fill in the form, and get an online. We can help set you up with either an online account to test drive it and have a play. And if you want, we can brand it for you too. And otherwise, again, we can get you software to deploy within Azure, however you want to deploy it. Go and test it out. So we encourage people to test it out and try it for themselves. And it's a good way of getting a feel for the product when you got your hands on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I personally am a very visually oriented person. I want to be able to see what we're talking about, and I want to be able to mess around and play with the settings and try things, and that tells usually the strongest story to me. So, but at any rate, again, thank you for not just showing it to us today, but letting us use the platform to record the episode. That's a very unique and fun experience. So this is good stuff. Next time I see you, maybe it'll be a different version of Pexip Pants. Are you guys keeping the same pants?
Well, I did get an email from loudmouth.com where I get them from. They have a new flavor. They have a new version called Cocktail, and they're similar colors, and they're like pentagons and all different squares and polygons and stuff. So who knows? Do we update? Who knows?
Hey, there you go. All right, there you go. That's awesome. It's definitely something that is becoming part of the experience on the circuit now, at least. That it's
Absolutely.
an expectation. So
I know the bar's up here now, isn't it?
It is. That's exactly it. So. All right. Well, thanks again. I will let you get to bed because I know it's quite a bit later for you than it is for me. So, but thanks, Graham. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks, Josh.
Have a good one.
And you.